world is changing rapidly in many aspects. A growing population of 8 billion people, an increase in Earth resources, growing technology and interconnectedness, and advanced industrialization. With this accelerated developmental pace, there is an elevated demand of the world's natural resources, causing adverse effects on our planet. Scientists have called this period the Anthropocene, a time when humans have impacted and affected the Earth's geology and ecosystems. Paradoxically then, these two entities, man and nature, that rely so much on the other for prosperity, is seemingly contradictory. With the current world environmental situation and the continued human and economic developments, not excluding the current health pandemic, the habits of unsustainable production affect us right here on St. Martin. The Department of Communications spoke to Ildiko Hilders, policy advisor in the field of nature and environment within the Policy Department at the Ministry of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, and to Melanie Meyer-Zoo-Slochtern, manager of the environmental organization Nature Foundation St. Martin. Hilders spoke about her work, the department's accomplishments of releasing the first St. Martin Nature Policy Plan, and its objectives.
As the Policy Advisor for Nature and Environment to the Minister of Romy, I develop policies, I oversee their implementation, and I evaluate their effectiveness. I also conduct research and develop projects for the gathering of data to support evidence-based policy. This is all in the field of nature and environment, which is very broad. It can include waste management, sustainable energy, as well as species protection, protected areas management, you name it. So since this is the first nature policy plan for St. Martin, it doesn't directly work on topics individually. It creates priority themes where we can group topics. And there are a few priority themes that are relevant to the Sargassum situation, and that is education and awareness, cooperation, sustainable financing, and climate change. In terms of education awareness, it's the objective to increase the overall education awareness of the population related to the issue. In terms of cooperation, it's important that we work with the region, also locally, to create streamlined policies and that are up to date with the relevant science. In terms of climate change, this is an issue which has probably been caused and perpetuated by climate change. So it's an objective to work towards different policy plans and strategies to adapt to these impacts of climate change. And sustainable financing, it focuses on creating sustainable finance streams for the management of nature so that we can make sure that we have proper plans in place.
The question of how might massive arrivals of sargassum impact the ecosystem in and around the ocean was also addressed.
It's important to note that sargassum has been washing up on our shores since before the massive phenomenon of 2011, and this is actually beneficial as well. In small quantities, sargassum, it nourishes the beach and it provides important areas, foraging areas for birds, for example. So it is very beneficial in small quantities. It's only when it comes over in massive mats that it has these damaging impacts to the environment and to human health.
St. Martin is signatory to the Cartagena Convention. Hilders explains the partnership agreement.
So we're actually signatory to the Cartagena Convention, which is the convention for the protection and development of the marine environment of the wider Caribbean region. And we work on many topics, and we're active in the discussions and the developments of this convention. And one of them is to work towards a regional sargassum strategy.
Because of climate change, Hilders indicated the importance for us to become more resilient and embrace the changes we are faced with.
Sargassum is actually very beneficial. It's an amazing habitat once it stays in the deep ocean. It supports something like 120 species. It even has its own endemic species, meaning species that are only found in the Sargassum. When it's out at sea, it's the only safety, like foraging ground and area for spawning for these species. The problem is that once it gets loose of the Sargasso Sea and starts drifting towards the shore, it starts to decompose. So first, when it's in the nearshore environment in these big mats, it blocks the sunlight from arriving at important ecosystems such as your mangroves, your coral reefs, and your seagrass beds. And this blocks photosynthesis. So what you can have is a massive die-off of these ecosystems, which will take decades to recover. And then when it washes ashore, it decomposes, which produces gases. And it also creates a hypoxic environment, which means less oxygen for the species to survive. And that hydrogen sulfide, by the decomposition, is also a nuisance to human health.
DCOMM also spoke to Melanie Meyer-Zoo-Slachtern, manager of the environmental organization Nature Foundation St. Martin.
Yeah, the Nature Foundation is established in 1997, and since then is protecting the environment on St. Martin, so all the natural resources we have on the island.
Melanie also took the time to explain about the organization and some of its aims.
We're working to protect the marine protected area, we're working for protected species and invasive species, and thereby we're trying to make sure that the future generation has nature to enjoy.
To delve deeper into the topic, Melanie elaborated on what is sargassum and its effects on St. Martin's eastern coast.
On St. Martin, we mostly have effect on the eastern beaches because that is where the current's coming from. The sargassum is coming from West Africa, coming with the current, and therefore it first trends on the areas on the eastern side of our beaches. For example, as we can see here in Point Blanche, but also Guana Bay has a lot of problems with the sargassum, Gibbs Bay and Oyster Point.
She further explained about the reason for the growth in sargassum across the Caribbean region and rest of the Atlantic areas.
Sargassum is natural in our ocean, and it has always been there floating, mainly in the Sargassum Sea, which is more to the northeast from us. However, since 2011, the sargassum has been blooming, and that have caused a lot of problems. Those blooms are probably caused due to excessive nutrients entering into our ocean from South Africa, mostly on the west side of Africa. Those nutrients, they are coming in our ocean due to the rivers, for example, the Amazon or the Congo River. So all around the world, we are using more fertilizers and we deforest our forests, causing those nutrients to run off in our oceans. And that is what scientists think, that thereby the sargassum has started to bloom in that area of West Africa. And unfortunately, the currents are going our way.
There is animal life within the sargassum which has some effects on the environment.
Sargassum can have all kinds of animal life in there and marine life. For example, invertebrates like little snails, algae are growing on it, but it's also a habitat for juvenile fish to hide under. Or for example, endangered sea turtles, which also come to our shore to nest, they are also hiding in that sargassum from predators. So it's very abundant marine life in that sargassum.
Sargassum seaweed will be around for quite some time. It is a natural occurrence. What is not normal and simple is how we deal with the environmental issues before us. Our coastline and beautiful beaches are to be cherished by protecting what we have for not only future generations, but also for the rest of the world. For what affects us, affects other places as well. This interrelationship on a grander scale is a solution and a commitment that will mitigate this environmental tide. How we live and adjust our daily lives to reduce our environmental footprint will dictate who we are, but also to what we will become on this planet. If we all contribute in various ways to reusing plastic bags, planting a tree, eating more of a plant-based diet, reducing transportation and walking more, the result of planetary decay will cease.